Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Welcome to the Networking RX podcast. I'm your host, Frank Agan, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections. Today, I have another guest. As our ongoing subscribers know, often on this podcast, I will be sharing ideas, insights, and best practices for building business relationships and excelling at professional networking. Occasionally, however, I will be interviewing subject matter experts, authors, speakers, thought leaders, social scientists, and these people share their knowledge to help us build better relationships. Today, I have on the program Kristen Weisdeck. She's the CEO and founder of Behaviorworks, which is a center for, it's Behaviorworks, Center for Autism and Behavior. That's the full name of the business. Kristen, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Frank, for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
You know, I had an interview a few years ago now, and the guy's kind of a marriage counselor, and he really hit me with something that I just can't kind of shake out of my mind. And what he said, every marriage has 8 relationships to it. And he said, you have a relationship with your spouse, and you have to kind of work through the numbers. You have a relationship with your spouse. You have a relationship with your mom. You have a relationship with your dad. You are impacted by their relationship with each other. And then your wife or your spouse has a relationship with her dad or mom and their relationship. So that's 7. And the last one was, and you have a relationship with yourself. And that's, when you and I first started talking, I mean, that's really, you're dealing with people with autism and other behavioral issues. And a lot of that is relationship with self. And it's not limited to people in this, what we'll call the spectrum. I think we all have these things. We all have problems with relationships with ourselves. So I guess let's talk about your work and then we'll kind of relate it back to.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because usually during my trainings, we offer half day and full day trainings, and working in a school district recently, we're talking about students and we're talking about how to better have a better relationship with your student as a teacher and kind of uncover what's going on at the basis of this. But I often find that a lot of the teachers that I work with also have these issues. They don't understand, again, we're talking about relationships. They don't understand the relationships that their eyes not working together, the nutrition, the food that they eat, the relationship that has on a person's behavior. So you don't have to be on the spectrum, like you said.
Right.
The food that you eat controls the way that you act. Having eyes that don't work together. So a lot of these kids with autism and ADHD, they have trouble having relationships with other people because they have convergence insufficiency, just meaning that their eyes don't come together. They also have trouble with combining central and peripheral vision. And so some kids are just in their peripheral vision. They're not in that central line of vision. And the problem is that if your eyes aren't looking at the same point, your ears aren't focused on the same point either, because anatomically those are connected too. They have a relationship with one another.
Yeah.
And so these teachers are finding out that they also have some vision issues. And they say, oh, is that why I have a headache? Or is that why, I get car sick? And I'll say, yes, that can have a big impact on that. But all of these things, and whether you're a person that's on the spectrum or not, there's so many underlying issues that people don't have conversations with their doctors about because it's not commonplace. And those are the type of relationships that we're interested in building with people that want to know and take a more holistic approach to behavior, whether it is a school district, whether it is a parent, somebody that's working with a child with autism or behavioral concerns. A lot of these folks are getting burnt out because behavior is so much more than meets the eye. Literally, figuratively.
Yeah.
But so a lot of these kids have issues that are related to birth experience, vision issues, dietary issues, allergies, intolerances, sensitivities. And so asking the right questions is so pivotal. Just like if you're in a networking meeting, right? You often don't find that connection that you can establish with another person until you ask the right questions.
Right.
And so that's what we focus on doing, is asking the right questions. And so some of those questions can be related to, was your child born via C-section? Because C-section impacts the way that your body moves as you're being born. So that affects the connectivity between the left and right hemispheres of your brain. So there's another relationship that's poorly established. But also, as you pass through that vaginal canal, you swallow some of that, and that bacteria becomes your gut bacteria. And so even being born via C-section affects your brain connectivity and your gut. And you have to have sufficient amounts of good and bad bacteria, because that's part of your human recipe. And so if you don't have part of that recipe, that can affect the way that everything goes on in your body. For instance, some of my kids, because they have poor nutrition, poor amounts of gut bacteria, they might not be able to digest some foods that are higher in zinc. And so zinc, there's another relationship, is related to smell and taste. And so starting to see all of these connections, low zinc could be a reason that a kid is a picky eater. And so having people understand the intricate details and everything that goes on is really, really important. But asking those right questions, just like if you're going to be a great networker,
Right.
You have to ask, what do you do? What business are you in? Who is the person you're looking to connect with? And so that's where we come in, is that connector. We're that networker to help families and professionals understand that, hey, all of this other stuff that's out there is affecting your child's behavior, because it's commonplace that people want to look at what happened in the environment and how did that child act. But there's so much more below the surface that we're able to see.
Yeah, to me, this is interesting. I just feel like we're at the golden age, or not the golden age, but the beginning of just kind of another level of understanding. I mean, we understand how the human body works, right? What the heart does and things like that. Gut bacteria, gut flora is the term for it. I don't know. We don't know anything. I remember having an issue about 5-6 years ago and going to the gastroenterologist. Hell, I didn't know what I had, right? And he didn't know what I had. And he said, we just don't know enough about things. He said, I think you'll be fine. And I was in time. But how all these things are connected. And well, you had sent me the TED talk of, I think Tommy Chi is his name, and talking about, how our blood all has a bit of iron in it, and a hemoglobin. And iron came from essentially a single star that blew up, went supernova in our vicinity. See, I listen, I watch the things you send. To me, that stuff's fascinating. I realize to some people it's woo woo, oh geez, this, but that's how, that's how we were 150 years ago. I was watching another TED talk. Well, it was what's his name, Simon Sinek. He was talking about the Black Death of childbirth. And what the Black Death of childbirth was, there was a time for about 150 years where not all women, but a lot of women, depending upon where they were located, within 48 hours of giving birth would die. And Oliver Wendell Holmes, who was a physician, his son became a Supreme Court justice. He said, you know what it is you guys are doing these autopsies on these women in the morning and delivering babies in the afternoon and not washing your hands. And of course, everyone's like, you're a quack. That is stupid, right? Well, we know today that that's absolutely. And it took 30 years for somebody to finally say, you know what, this is not quackery. There's something to this. And it solved it like that. People can't hear. I just snap my fingers. And so I'm never dismissive of these sorts of things. The earth is round. I'm not, if you got here and told me the earth is flat, I would say, come on. Come on. We've been up there. It's round. But, the things you're talking about, certainly impact us. And there's little, not getting enough sleep, right? I have horrible days when I don't get enough sleep. I just know it's okay. It's going to be a bad day. Can I sneak a nap in somewhere, please? When I don't eat right, I don't have a good day. And these are all the things you're talking about, I think, at least.
Yeah, no, focusing in on sleep. We talked about how the gut bacteria via C-section, right? So your gut bacteria can be deficient for a few reasons. Whether you were born via C-section, if you've taken several courses of antibiotics, if you eat food that's not organic, so that's sprayed with herbicides and pesticides, it kills the bugs on our food and it kills the bugs inside our gut. So if you don't have a good balance of good and bad gut bacteria, that's part of your human recipe. And your gut bacteria are part of the recipe for generating what are called neurotransmitters. And so neurotransmitters are chemical signals like epinephrine, norepinephrine, GABA, dopamine, serotonin. Serotonin is responsible for the creation of melatonin in the body, which, as we know, that's the sleep hormone.
Yeah.
You have to have enough sufficient melatonin. But if your gut bacteria is not sufficient to generate serotonin, which 80% of it is made in your gut, if you don't have enough serotonin to make that melatonin, you're not going to have sufficient sleep and wake cycles. And so we always act as a referral point for these things. So we always tell people to consult with your primary physician, consult with the child's pediatrician to look at getting the child on a daily vitamin and a daily pre and probiotic. There's also postbiotics, but at least getting on a pre and probiotic, because as soon as we start to ask those questions, and we talk about poop a lot, I just can't help it. Because
it's a podcast. We're good. Go for it.
But it's so important because it gives us clues to say, what happened from beginning to end of your body,
right, that
didn't go right. And so a lot of these kids, and even your viewers that are listening, to say, oh, I have a lot of these issues too, because this awakens a lot of ideas in people, not just for kids with autism, but everyone. If you are not going to the bathroom regularly every day and it stinks really bad, you have a hard time going, yourself that it puts you in a certain mood. It's the same for these kids, but a lot of times they can't tell us in words. They tell us with their behavior. And so that disrupts the relationship that they have with parents and society at large. And so understanding the simple things, just asking those right questions, having people understand those relationships inside the body, then you start to get these kids that can have relationships outside their body, because they're not so much in fight or flight. Because in fight or flight, that could be from our ancestors long ago, that if you had an external threat, right, you have this big saber-toothed tiger that's running after you, you have to be up on your toes and ready to run. A lot of our kids can see things in their outside world as an external threat, but also the inside of their body is not working right. They are more susceptible to death should there be something unsafe happen. So they have to be ready to run. But that also tells us something inside the body isn't right. What questions should we be asking to uncover those things? So sleep is so pivotal. We talk about gut dysbiosis. We talk about sleeping environment, because our ancestors long ago didn't have alarm clocks.
No.
So what happens is when the sun goes down, the rods and cones in your eyes, talking about all these relationships, the rods and cones in your eyes send signals to your brain that there's less light coming in. And so it starts that creation of melatonin. And then so you have those sleep and wake cycles called circadian rhythms that start. If the sleep environment is too loud, too chaotic, too many lights, that doesn't happen. And so these people that have screen time, whether you're a tiny human or a big human,
right,
screen time will interfere with those natural production of melatonin, because your eyes still see that light coming in. And so you don't get that start of that circadian rhythm, and you need that REM sleep, that rapid eye movement sleep, to help with rest and regeneration of the cells in your body. And so looking at all of these questions to see what is that relationship to the behavior that they're having. And so sleep is so pivotal, because if you don't get enough sleep, whatever happens the next day, you have these meetings, you have interactions with your spouse or other siblings or just people in the world in general. It's very difficult some days. It's very difficult to function.
I find I can't process, can't focus as well. I'm not as sharp. I'm not as, quick in reading people. And it's, we talked about before we hit record, Zoom's great because I can see somebody's face and I can see, okay, they thought that was funny, or man, they're totally disgusted with me. I'm less able to do that when I'm short on sleep, or when I'm in a room with a lot of people. I'm not even talking 100 people, but if I'm in a meeting one-on-one, I can focus on you. If there's another person, then I'm focusing on you, and I'm focusing on them, and I'm focusing on your interaction with them. I'm not consciously doing it, but subconsciously, I'm trying to keep track of all of these things that are going on. You enter a third person in, or fourth person, it just complicates it even more. So these things are, it's all related. The human recipe. I love that.
Yeah. And for, anybody that doesn't bake that's on the call or listening to this podcast, you can relate it to a vehicle. If your car doesn't have the right type of gas in it, then it's not going to work right.
Right.
If it has, not enough antifreeze or not enough oil, it's going to start, quote unquote, behaving differently than what you would expect. Just as we relate that to kids, if their vitamin and mineral levels are low, they're going to start behaving differently than what we would expect. And so again, this applies to any human.
Right.
Because there is such a relationship inside the body. None of these systems work in a silo. They're all interconnected, just as we are as humans. The universe wants balance. The universe wants homeostasis, and so does the body. When there's not that homeostasis, just asking those right questions, understanding those relationships, and then getting in front of the right people, as a networker, getting in front of the right people makes such a big difference, Frank, because if you can understand, and we talked a little bit about this, the difference between an optometrist and a developmental optometrist. When you go to an optometrist, they prescribe glasses or contacts, or they tell you if you have a cataract or a scratch on your cornea or something like that, but they don't check for that ocular motor dysfunction. They don't check to see are your eyes working together. And so understanding, getting in front of the right people are what is critical. So whether it's an optometrist or a pediatrician, a developmental pediatrician, you have to find that right person. So if anybody's listening to this and they're struggling, finding different resources, an osteopathic doctor, a naturopathic doctor, a chiropractor, some other practitioner that's going to provide you alternatives than what you're used to, because that makes all the difference in the world.
It's fascinating. Let's shift gears here a little bit. Behaviorworks Center for Autism and Behavior. Behaviorworks Center for Autism and Behavior. I won't have an in there. You had mentioned before we hit record, that's opening this week, tomorrow. I'm recording today. It's February 24th. This will come out. This is probably coming out mid-April. So you've been, at this point, been open for a couple months. All the kinks are out of it. I want you to talk about your business and what you're doing and how people can help you, or how you can help them, so please.
Yeah. So essentially what our main audience is helping parents that are frustrated with their current service provider. They're overwhelmed with the number of services their child's receiving. They're discouraged because their child has reached a plateau, but they know that they have so much more potential. So at Behaviorworks, we help parents shift from surviving to thriving every day. And we do that in one of two ways. So we offer our half and our full day training events in which we help people understand easy to implement interventions and assessments to get to the root cause of behavior, because essentially we want to be able to provide that understanding of all of those things that we've been talking about to help reduce burnout in parents and increase an understanding of all of those concepts. But we also provide the outpatient clinic. And so when they come to us, we do virtual visits also, and we help people connect with providers in their area that would be able to help them. But at the outpatient clinic, when they come to us, they get a 2-hour comprehensive assessment of their child's behavior. They meet with me for an hour, and then I co-treat with an occupational therapist who treats things called retained primitive reflexes, which are movement patterns that you're born with. But if they stick around for too long, they impede higher level movement activities like writing and reading and bedwetting and posture issues and things. So you get that comprehensive assessment, and then you get a mix of virtual and in-person sessions. And we provide this group coaching call every month to our patients to talk with subject matter experts about a variety of topics, including nutrition and gut dysbiosis, the vision issues. But I also educate them about behavior, because I want them to walk away with a full understanding of all of these approaches to create success, not just now for their learner, but long into the future. And so even if these people don't take advantage of the trainings or our outpatient clinic, we also have resources on our YouTube channel, Beyond Behavior. We're on Instagram at Behaviorworks, that's Behavior WORX, and our website. So we are able to educate people at multiple levels. I could die tomorrow, right, Frank? So
Yeah.
I don't want to leave this earth with all this knowledge if I can just pass it on in any way, shape, or form, because essentially what I see happening is that a lot of these children are trapped inside their bodies. It's not that they won't respond to what they're being asked to do, it's that they can't. Because if you have chronic inflammation in your body, chronic inflammation in your brain, your systems are disconnected. And so we want to be able to put that back together and get them to have a good relationship and to make sure that they network with one another.
Yeah, there you go. What would be your website is
Yes.
it behaviorworkpa.com or?
So it's www.behavior, WORX, Behaviorworks of southwesternpa.com.
Okay. All right. I'll get that in the show notes. People can,
Okay.
And I assume people can get a hold of you through that. Then there's a contact form or.
Yeah, as soon as the website pops up, there's a contact form for our email list. But to contact me directly, they can email me at the Behaviorworks, Behavior WORXPA @gmail.com.
Okay. All right. I appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity, Frank. I really appreciate it. I had a great time.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AMSPIRIT.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.